Hello and welcome again. Continuing on with my New Year's resolution and my 7 paths to peace. We've been through Monday, which is your mental health, Tuesday, which is your emotional health, Wednesday, which is your physical health, and now on Thursday, your financial health. So, this is a pertinent subject for everybody, but also when it comes to the homeless, this is the one that is most often focused on and believed to be the solution pretty much all the time. There are people who obviously connect homelessness also with a drug addiction or, severe mental illness. But most of the time it's focused on your financial health. So I'm going to talk to you about my goal and the way that I think about money and the plan that I have and what I feel able to do in my situation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the past. This is going to be a long video and I know that. The others I was hoping were shorter, but this one I know is going to be long, so if you want to listen, I would really appreciate it. But again, go into your settings. It gives you an option for speed, and you can put me up to 1.5 or 2. I listened to a playback of one of my videos at 1.5, and I sounded a lot better. So I didn't sound quite as whiny, and it was nice. I hope what I'm about to say can help some of you. It could help you if you, some of my viewers are from South Africa, Thailand, but honestly, it can really help you in the United States too. Like I said in a past video, I actually lived on about $1 to $2 a day for many, many, many years. I first started doing it when I traveled around the world. Obviously, in some circumstances or for some big ticket items, I didn't do that. But I started it on a daily basis when I traveled around the world. When I finished my travels overseas, I came back to the United States. I did a cross-country trip on a motorcycle for about 9 months in total. I stopped and worked over the winter, and ever since then, which has been more than 15 years, I've done it for the majority of the 15 years. There's been times where I haven't, and like I said, my depression got so deep anyways, so there were times where I just allowed myself the simplest things that could make me feel even a tiny bit better, like candy. So I know it can be done. Now, I was doing this pre-2020. Since that disaster and our inflation, it is more difficult. So I would say $2 to $3 a day rather than $1 to $2 a day. I would now say $2 to $3 a day. But I was for years and years and years and years doing it on $1 to $2 a day. Talking about my finances, my budget, and how I want to proceed and what I do believe can help you if, you may not be this extreme. You may not believe everything I'm about to say. You might think it's too much, but take what you can and apply what you can, or just leave it as something that I'm doing. But I do believe a lot of this would be helpful for anybody. I don't care if you make $500,000 a year or if you make $20,000 a year. So there's 2 things that you have to understand or none of this works. Okay? I'm going to explain the 2 things, then I'm going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then finally I'll discuss that budget in congruence with those previous items. The 2 things that you have to understand, whether or not you want to be as extreme as I am, if you can understand this, then you can decide how extreme you want to be. Needs versus wants. And they are so different. And people use these words flippantly. If you want extreme control of your money, if you want to be able to live off the barest bare minimum, and you have to be extremely and cutthroat clear about a need versus a want. You cannot call a want a need, even though you might be tempted to, just so you can justify it in yourself and say, oh yeah, I need that. No. And a need, as I'm defining it, is something you have to have in order to live. In order to breathe in and out every day, you have to have this. And I'm just going to describe the needs. The wants will come as I talk, but you all know what wants are. It's just that sometimes people say, oh, no, that's a need, and they know full well it's a want, or they might think it's really a need, and it's not a need. And then there are some needs that in certain circumstances, they're a need, and in other circumstances, they're not. So for example, if you run a business, there are some things that you need in order to run that particular business, which I would not need. What I'm talking about right now is your need to live. So let's talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need air to breathe. Guess what's so wonderful about breathing? It's free. They have not figured out a way to charge you for it. So check that off. We don't even need to think about it. You need food. Now, do you need P.F. Chang's? Do you need Starbucks? Do you need, it's been so long since I even went out. I can't even think of places to eat. I don't know. Chili's, blah, 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 blah. Some of those places are expensive, and some of those places are cheaper. Your need is food. Okay? The need is food. You do not need P.F. Chang's. Now you can argue with me the need is healthy food. And sometimes that might be a little more expensive. But I just want to emphasize the need for you to breathe in and out every day is food. And it does not have to be expensive. Most of the world, beans and rice is your staple. You know, I went and traveled through Central America as well, and beans and rice, beans and rice, beans and rice. You know how cheap that is? In Africa, they have this little patty. It's not like a pancake, and I don't know how to describe it to you, but it's this little patty, and they'd fry up an egg, and they'd put that on there, and they'd roll it up, and there was like a little bit of cilantro and, you know, some onions or something like that. And it cost me like 20 cents. The most basic food. Now, that same meal that I just described to you, if you went to El Pollo Loco, for example, it would not be 20 cents. Now, obviously that's because we're in the United States, in part, but it's also in part that they're going to charge you more because they're making it and you're not. You could walk into an immigrant's house here in the United States, and they could be making rice that they bought this huge bag, 10 pounds of rice, and they've divvied it out. You know, 1 cup is like 10 cents or something like that, you know. And then their beans, same thing, they bought in bulk. So they bought 5 pounds of beans or something, and they divvy that out. And then, you know, only a cup full of beans is like also 10 cents, you know. And I'm not giving you exact figures, but I'm going to be doing so in the future. Being in a home and having that ability to cook it and to get just the basics, and you make it yourself, we all know this. It's cheaper and it's healthier. So 2 birds, 1 stone. But if you can't do that, if you don't have the time, you know, or you're not even into the healthy eating, the dollar store, you can get a full meal, $1. Okay? Or you can buy a loaf of bread. You can buy some peanut butter with, you know, they have this peanut butter with honey mixed in. You know, those are $2 each, $1 for the loaf of bread, $1 for the peanut butter. You only use 2 slices of that loaf of bread. So if there's 50 slices in the loaf, those 2 slices are X amount of change because the whole loaf was $1. I'm going to calculate all this because I'm going to show you guys. But you've essentially eaten yourself a 10-cent meal. You know, to live, all you need is food. If one of you guys went on a vacation to an island somewhere, or to Africa or Southeast Asia, whatever, okay, and you got injured, and a local found you in the jungle or in the desert or something. They found you, so they brought you home to help you recuperate, and they fed you. Number one, this is eating to live. You're going to eat what they give you. The food is the bare minimum, and they add the spices. I mean, it tastes really great. It's so healthy because it's all made homemade, and it's the most basic of food. And that's what you're going to do to recuperate and live. So you know that that's all you need. You don't need, again, I'm just going to use P.F. Chang's. Sorry, P.F. Chang's. But you don't need a $50 plate of food to live. You don't need a $20 plate of food to live. You really can live on a $1 plate of food or 50 cents plate of food. Or $2. I mean, if you want to like treat yourself. In my case, right? People who know me, if they ever watched this video, they know I'm not joking. So, food, it's a need, but the need is only what keeps you alive. Okay? The bare minimum of what keeps you alive. That's the need. And the reason I'm stressing it so much, because again, needs versus wants. Needs versus wants. If you want to live on a really strict budget, okay, or the fact of the matter is it's not just about living on a strict budget. You can totally give yourself the wants, but acknowledge that it's a want. It's not a need. And it will help you in the financial realm. It just will. It will help you. It will help you in business. It will help you personally. If you can just be totally extreme in this way of thinking, and again, even allow yourself some of the wants if you want to, but you have to know that that's within your budget, but you always call it a want. Do not confuse the two, okay? So it gives you power because you know what you're choosing. Okay, so that's food. So we've got air, we've got food, we need water. We need water to live. Wow, we don't need soda pop. We don't need orange juice. We don't need Starbucks. We don't need coffee. We don't need any of those things. We need water. Water's also free. Water's also free. Now, really quick story. I'm going to be brief about it. When I was very young, my sister brought home a bottle of Evian water, and she bought this. And I was like, why would you buy water? What are you doing? Okay? Now, this is aging me because this was at a time where it was like a novelty to buy a bottle of water. Like, this was not common. And I was like, why would you spend money on water? It's free. Now, fast forward, and the water that comes out of our taps, I will tell you, because I never felt like water had a taste before, but more and more and more and more, when you drink it out of the tap, it does. But I mean, I still will. It depends on the state you're in and where you're at. Where I'm at now, it tastes like doo-doo water. And I've had a few water bottles where it's like, it's grown fungus. I'm not even joking. So, filtered water. You can buy your own filter, okay, which is an expense. Or when you go places, you can even go buy the gallon jugs and fill them up. They're only 25 cents. How I do it, I have a bottle of water I carry around, and anytime I pass a gas station, anytime I pass a fast food place, they always have a filtered water thing there. It tastes good. It tastes fine. Our water is still free. But now there are some establishments that you go into, and they've cut that off. And they've probably cut it off because of the homeless. But, so, you don't need the soda pop. You need the water. Water to live. Water is free. That's it. So far, our expenses are only for food, and it's itty bitty bitty bitty. Okay? Like I said, I lived on $1 to $2 a day. Now it's about $2 to $3. Okay, so we've got air, food, water, and now clothing. How many shirts do you have? How many blouses do you have? How many buttons downs do you have? How many sweaters do you have? How many tank tops do you have? How many pairs of pants do you have? How many slacks do you have? How many dress outfits do you have? How many suits do you have? How many pairs of shoes do you have? How many pairs of socks do you have? How many blazers do you have? How many blah, 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 blah. Okay? Need and want. Need and want. When I traveled around the world for 2 years, I had 2 pairs of clothing that I wore during the week and 1 outfit for church. That was it. Basically from Fiji all the way to Nepal. Okay, so this will actually give you an idea of the warmth versus the cold. From Fiji to Nepal, 2 pairs of clothes. 1 to wear, 1 to wash. 1 to wear, 1 to wash, 1 to wear, 1 to wash, 1 to go to church in. That's it. Same pairs of flip-flops for all of it. Now, when I got to Nepal, it was very cold. I was going to Mount Everest, okay? Now, it was the warmer part of the year, but it was still really cold, really, really cold. I'm up in the Himalayas. I went through Nepal and into Tibet to go to Mount Everest. So you're talking about the highest country elevation-wise in the world, and it was very, very, very cold. Now, going into that environment, so then maybe you need 2 different pairs of pants. Again, 1 to wear, 1 to wash. 2 sweaters, 1 to wear, 1 to wash, right? A little bit thicker of a church outfit, and you might actually have to have some church shoes at that point, right? But you're still talking about maybe 10 items of clothing, okay? Maybe. Why am I stressing this? Because this doesn't apply necessarily. Like, none of you are going to just go out and, okay, only 10 pairs of items. But you could probably never buy another item of clothing again and live the rest of your life with what you have. Again, the whole point is the needs versus the wants. It's to understand this clearly and know the choices that you're making and know what a need is. You need clothing to live, but you don't need a lot, and it doesn't need to be expensive. You only need a select few items to actually live, okay? To actually live, to actually breathe in and out. Now I know, and I'm going to say it now because I know what you've probably been thinking this whole time. Yeah, but we're not all just in survival mode. No, we're not all in survival mode, 100%, and I understand that. You still have to be extreme in the way that you think of the need. I think this is, again, just what I really believe. What I really believe would help anybody trying to be stricter on their budget is to be very extreme with that definition of need. Not that you'll exactly follow it, but to be very extreme about that definition of need. And then you have the choice of how closely you want to follow it, but you'll know. You know, and even this shirt, you know, when I got this, I got this sweater. Somebody's eating and they're sitting down there. I don't want them to hear this. I got this sweater out of the dumpster, and I got it out of the dumpster 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you know. Now, it's got a few holes in it, but it looks okay. It looks okay still. I mean, it's just fine. It's just fine. Now, when I got it out of the dumpster 20 years ago, it wasn't the only pair of clothing that I had, and so I didn't wear it all the time. But I've literally been wearing this sweater and one other sweater, I want to say, for the last 4 years. And previous to that, only a few sweaters. You know, so once those ones go bad, I move on to the next. As long as I have been in survival mode, okay, again, because just survival mode, I just have these 2 sweaters. That's all I'm carrying. This one and the orange one that you've seen me in all these videos. Now, I know most people will go beyond that, but most of you already have a full wardrobe. So, clothing. How much do you need to spend in budget for clothing? 0. On a monthly basis, 0. On a yearly basis, so the next category is sleep. So we have air, free, food, $2 to $3, water, free, clothing, free, okay, because you buy it once and it's done for. Then we have sleep. Guess what else is free? Free. Now, not having a comfortable place to sleep, and especially not having a secure place to sleep, and definitely not having a warm or cool, depending on the temperature outside, place to sleep, really, really, really affects you. Really affects you. My mind, that's why sometimes when I'm doing these videos, I can't even think of a word. I can't move past things. It's not just the depression. Yes, it's definitely the impact of sleep on my body and mind and mental capacity and emotions. But it is free as far as your finances go. Technically it's free because I can go outdoors, I can go outside, I can go, up in the mountains, I can go, there's BLM land all over the United States, which means that it's owned by the government, and they allow you to sleep there. You can pull up an RV, you can pull up a trailer, and you can sleep there for free. Their rule is that in 2 weeks you need to move so many miles to another spot. Now they never come check because this is usually out in the boondocks. So, you could stay in that one spot past your 2 weeks, or you could move to the next spot. There's a place down near Yuma, Arizona, I want to say maybe 40 miles away from Yuma, Arizona, where they've designated it. It is BLM land. It used to be free, but now they've seen that a lot of snowbirds, people from Canada and like the colder climates in the United States, come down there to be in a warm area and to go across the border into Mexico to get, some of their teeth done and their eyes and some of their health care because it's cheaper. So they'll go down there and they stay in one spot, and they kind of set up camp. They set up shop, they set up house for 6 months. And so it's become a regularly visited destination, and people know about it. So the government, again, see, I can't think of the word, but the government, the powers that be, whatever, they've decided that they'll put out some porta potties out there, and porta potties, there's no water that I'm aware of. I think it's really just the porta potties. They put out porta potties and something else, so now they charge people like $100 for 6 months. So you can go out there and have your little spot, and people put up rocks all the way around. Some people put some flamingos. They pretend that they have this front yard, and most people, everybody's aware, so they respect one another, and so nobody parks right next to you. This is huge plateau of desert nothingness, so you don't need to park right next to somebody, but it's right by the Colorado River, so there's parts of this that's just really beautiful. Anyways, I've stayed there before, I didn't pay the $100, I just stayed there for a week or two, but yeah, so free. Sleep is free. Now, most of us are not going to sleep in the great outdoors. We don't have the RV, That brings me to the last need, shelter. So air free, water free, sleep free, clothing free, food $2 to $3, now shelter. What is the purpose of shelter? You need to answer that question in order to understand what the need for shelter is. The purpose of shelter, since our ancestors came upon this earth, was really to keep you warm or from the elements. So I'd say in the desert, it would be to shade you from the heat and the sun, and in the winter to keep you warm and alive from the cold, right? It was to keep you from animals and dangerous tribes or people, to have something that would create some barrier of security around you while you slept, especially warmer climates. A tent is fine. tent keeps you from snakes, keeps you from, most of the time, from spiders, keeps you from rats, supposed to anyways. Although they do eat through these tents out here. But don't keep any food in your tent then, or around it. Keep your area clean. It can keep you from the animals and keep you from the elements and give you a small measure of security. That tent that I had in the park, because there were people around, I kept a lock on it. Not that that was going to do anything. People could take a knife and bada bing, bada boom, it's open. But shelter is just meant to give you a measure of security, keep you from the elements, keep you from animals. That's it. So it can be a tent. I mean, think of our ancestors think of the people who crossed the plains, right? Those cowboys. What would they do? They'd go for miles and miles and miles on their horseback. So they didn't have very many changes of clothes. The clothes that they had, they'd worn and worn and worn and worn and worn in all sorts of rough environments. And now here they are out in the open. And you always see on these cowboy movies, they roll up a thing and put it for a pillow and lay, on just one blanket on the dirt right by the fire and put their hat over their head and boom. They didn't even pitch a tent. A car can be shelter, an RV obviously a home, an apartment, whatever. But your need to breathe in and out every day, survival, your need, I would say at the very beginning is a tent. Those cowboys are amazing because I think a rattlesnake could have come up and bitten them. Same here, but you see people sleeping out on park benches and everything else. Is shelter a need in that sense then? And if so, how much? The reason I'm beating this dead horse is because, I need shelter, and yeah, my rent is $3,000 a month. And the next guy, no, I need shelter, and my rent is $10,000. Like, he buys $1 million home, and he thinks that's a need. That's not a need. That's not a need. In what world is that a need? That's not a need. That's not a need. A $500,000 home is not a need. Our ancestors lived in small cabins with 8 children and a husband and a wife in a 1-bedroom, okay? I mean, a small, tiny bedroom usually for the couple, the husband and wife, and then all 8 of those children shared the same room. And they popped some logs in the fire and they heated that little cabin. Around the world, if you see shelter around the world, when I lived in Africa, I stayed with a tribe. They built their little huts out of cow manure, water, and dirt. That's how they built it. And they would go out into the wilderness and get these very specific kind of tree and shrub branches that poked out. And they'd come back and they'd twist and tie all of these branches together. And then they'd get their cow dung and their mud and their water and they'd mix it all up and they'd pat it around these branches, and there was their hut. And I built one with them. So technically I'm not homeless because they said it's mine. I built it and I could come back anytime I want. So I do have a home. This was in Kenya. So their concerns were definitely the beasts, right? There's lions out there. There was hyenas. There was elephants, there was all sorts of animals that could eat you. The neighboring tribe really wasn't very close to them. They didn't worry too much about that at all. But, and then it was hot, so that would offer a little bit of coverage and a little bit of cooling effect. I know I'm going way too long on this, but I'm really trying to drive this home. So there's your needs: air, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. It's all you need to live, breathe in and out. Now let's get to my budget.